and a big welcome to WTF Finals live show. Please do let us know if you're joining us today. Any questions you want at all, please do put them in the chat. Um, I'm unfortunately not joining you from Riyadh. My players, Gabby Dabrowski and Aaron Routliffe, lost there. Well, we reframed it as a quarter-final match. It was the last group stage match yesterday. They lost to Babos and Stefani, and it meant that Babos Stefani took the final spot in the semi-final. So I actually excused the eyes. I flew overnight to come back to England to see my mum who hasn't been so well before I travel back to Spain. But I wanted to just jump on as we kind of were moving into the semi-finals today. We do have quite a few questions that have come in via social media. I have Candy Reid that is going to be joining me. But of course, at first, this podcast is brought to you by Novellus. And a big thank you for all the support and the Novellus and the partnership that we have with them. And we've got a couple of exciting matches on the singles court and a couple of exciting doubles matches that myself and Candy will make our way through. Starting off today, I believe it'll be in about half an hour's time. It is Babos Stefani will play Sue Ostapenko. And then we have Jess Pagula against Rabakina, who has been my pick from the word go this week. I thought she looked strong going into the event, and that's where my money was. And then we have Sabalenka and against Anisimova. Get ready for some serious ball striking in that match. And then the final match tonight will be Taylor Townsend and Sini Akava, who will play against Mertens and Kudermetova in the semi-finals of the doubles as well. So yeah, so an exciting day, one that I wish that I was part of, but in this sport of tennis, it's you can't win them all, right? And we were very lucky to be a big part of that last year and be there to the very end and lifting the trophy. And this year wasn't quite the same. And I guess that'll be one of the topics I also would like to pick up with Candy when she jumps on in a couple of minutes. It's women's tennis is a bit like that. We've got a lot of different. Coco Gauff brought that up earlier this week in the press conference, not in a detrimental way to the men's game, but just brought up that the reality is there's lots of different winners on the women's side, whereas we kind of know on the men's side right now, right? We know that it's going to be Yannick Sinner, we know that it's going to be Carlos Alcaraz, and there's not a whole lot of variety that is happening, on the men's side, and I think that goes into as well the WTA finals. We've had 10 different winners in the last 10 years, or this will be the 10th different winner in 10 years on the WTA finals side. I think we've got to go back to, I believe Serena Williams was winning. She won 3 in a row, I think maybe 12, 13 and 14. And then she did qualify in 15 and 16, but she didn't play. She was injured. But since then we've had 10 different winners, and again, all semi-finalists this year have not been have not won the WTA finals yet. So also put in the chat, please, who do you think's going to win? Who's going to win the singles title? Who's going to win the doubles title in Riyadh this week? Get those questions coming in. We are going to get to some questions, but I'm going to actually start with a couple of questions before Candy jumps in. And we did have a question that came in last night. It makes me not want to answer this one because it's as the coach, not so many hours after the loss, a difficult loss. But am I happy with Gabby and Aaron's WTA finals? Look, it's not that you're unhappy. Of course, you want to do better, and but I think taking everything into account, and you've almost got to look and measure success over a period of time. And if I look at 2025, they've come away with a Grand Slam. They're finishing the year number 3 team, number 4 team in the world. They've overcome a lot of adversity, injuries, illnesses, many different things. And I think if you look at the year as a whole, absolutely, you've got to be happy. But of course, you feel that there was maybe one left out there a little bit. Now here we've got Candy joining me. Candy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping in. It saves me. I just had to answer a question of whether I was happy with Erin and Gabby's WTA finals.
And
Well, I started answering it, but now you're here, so now I don't have to go down that route, So
you would have been
close.
happier if they'd won that match tiebreaker.
Absolutely. Or would have been happier probably if they'd held serve at 3-2 serving and 4-3 serving. But anyway, this is tennis. This is tennis, Candy. And how are you? How's things?
Everything is well. I've been working on Mess for the ATP this week, and so it's been a good tournament. We've got Cameron Norrie against Lorenzo Sonego in today's semi, and then we've got this Ukrainian guy ranked 222 in the world. He's called Vitaly Sachko, and he's just beaten Pechi Pericard and Bublik back to back. He's just beaten Clément Tabeur, a qualifier from France, whom he lost to in qualifying. That was in 3 sets late last night. So he's going to be in his first ATP Tour semi-final against Lerna Tien, the 19-year-old who has just beaten Matteo Berrettini. And Berrettini, I can tell you, is playing really well again and looks like he's going to have a massive 26 if he can stay healthy.
It's interesting, these men that are coming from outside the top 200. Huh? I mean, we obviously had Vachereau. It's that the levels is getting deeper and deeper. Huh?
It's unbelievable. There was 2 lucky losers who made the quarterfinals. 3 players ranked well outside the top 150 who made the quarterfinals, and it's a strange time of year, isn't it? Because it's the last season of the regular ATP Tour. So you always get a few players like Felix Auger-Aliassime and Daniil Medvedev who pulled out of the tournament. But it is an opportunity for these others to showcase how good they are. And I think, I don't know how you feel, Dan, but in the top 500, the guys are extraordinarily good. And the women, top 300, are very, very strong. I mean, there's very little between them, really.
Absolutely. Well, I think the Vachereau story is just an incredible one. I think if we take 8 weeks ago, he was 210 in the world, and not 210 in the world without playing tennis. He'd been around. He was playing number 6 with Texas A&M. He kept, and then all of a sudden he looks like he's one of the best players in the world. It's like it just shows the margins are obviously very small, right? They really are. And how much of it? Because one of the things I heard a lot in Riyadh, I kept laughing when I heard it. It reminded me of a Michael McIntyre sketch. Michael McIntyre. They always went, I can't believe it's November. And he's like, what are you talking about? You can't believe it's November. Like people say, I can't believe it's November. Of course it's November. It was October last month. And every time it's October, it's then November next, But I heard a lot of players saying, well, it is November. And like overhearing the physios, how's the body feeling? Well, it's November. What do you think? How, and to bring that personally to you as well, Candy, because I think we talk about tennis players. We obviously we shining a light on the tennis players, rightly so, because they're the talent that people are watching. But there is a whole big machine that goes around the tennis world, right? From coaches to physios to stringers to commentators to, you name it, and you obviously engrossed in that world. How do you feel when it gets to November?
Well, I still absolutely love it. And, a lot of players, and you hear a lot of people sort of complaining about the length of the season. And I'm just thinking, I don't want it to end. And for us, it's jobs. And I'm certainly not doing this for the money. I do it because I really enjoy it. And I quite like more tennis rather than less. So I know there's a couple of tournaments coming off the ATP calendar next year, and I'm kind of sad about it. For instance, there's going to be no Mess next year. The Moselle Open is ending at 22 years and will not be on the ATP calendar in 2026. So I'm really sad about that. But I can understand if you're a player, especially the top players who are playing a lot during tournaments, and now with this expanded 1000s, that it is exhausting. We've had Gilles Muller, the Luxembourg player, who of course famously beat Andre Agassi in his first ATP semi-final and beat Rafa as well. And we were talking about the day in the life of a tennis player, and it's for maybe some of us, we're thinking, well, you know, a match is at say 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So tennis player rolls up at 1 o'clock, has a, you know, little hit and then plays a match and then goes home and has a nice supper. It is not like that at all. It's a 10-12 hour day. It's full of stress and anxiety and not knowing when you're going to play. The rain comes down. When do I eat? I didn't sleep very well last night. I've got a shoulder niggle. My left hamstring hurts. What do I do about this? I've got to win. I'm feeling a bit nervous. I'm not confident. You know, all this crazy stuff that's going on. So I think for tennis players, it is a long, hard, arduous season. Obviously, hopefully at the top level, they're getting paid really well because of it, and they're getting the love of hopefully stepping out on Wimbledon centre court or US Open and playing the finals. I mean, you're amongst the top players, so you see that world happening. But the stress and anxiety and all the stuff that goes into it, I can understand for many tennis players that's a lot, and they do need a breather from that. But on my side of it, I can't get enough of it. I'm sure you probably feel a little bit the same.
Yeah, no, I do. I must admit, this is probably the biggest year I've done as a coach in terms of
Yeah.
number of weeks, and I must admit, I feel like it's November. Like I love it. I absolutely love it. But I think it's the emotion of it all, really, and
Yeah.
I think it's that kind of the nervous system's always switched on. You're always thinking about what you're saying, how you're doing, how I get that next scouting report done.
Yeah.
You know, okay, US Open win, but okay, well now we can't. Okay, US Open's gone now. You know, you enjoy it for a day or two, but then it's like it's gone. Okay, now what have we got to do next? How do we get the team ready for this next event? How do we, and obviously mixing that with the other world you work in as well. So I think it's, and I maybe disagree with you slightly, Candy, that like when I see Sabalenka, and I don't know Sabalenka, but I do follow her on Instagram. She seems to do okay for the old holidays. You know the old time in Dubai, and then I think about maybe someone who is constantly grinding the points. You know, like I think you when you get to the very top, I mean, we see Djokovic, right? Djokovic is very selective now on what he plays. I think you can maybe manage a year a little bit better. I guess the side note of that story is, and you see this in Riyadh with the doubles players more than any other time of the year, is the amount of pressure on media appearances and not then photos, and then what goes into that, the picking of dresses, the picking of makeup, hair, style. You want to perform. Yesterday Gabby lost, but then an hour later she was back on the court, for a picture for the WTA for breast cancer. And there's many different elements to it, and I guess the top players have that more. They're carrying the weight of that on the tour, I would say. But the stress of those players that are just, and they're still trying to get those last few points to get themselves into maybe Australian Open qualifying or Australian Open main draw.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, then preseason starts. It's a lot more than maybe meets the eye. What people that are just kind of casually watching on TV.
No, it's a lot more. I was just reading an excerpt of Wayne Rooney's autobiography where he said for playing for Manchester United, he got drunk and then he'd turn up, score a couple of goals and go home. I mean, think about that in tennis. There's no chance. There's absolutely no chance. I was thinking maybe the only person that could probably get away with that is Nick Kyrgios. He, would be the guy that would just, but the level of professionalism is extraordinary. And I think when players talk about, maybe we need more time off, actually, the guys ranked, between 100 and 1,000 don't want time off. They need to play because this is their income. And I've just read the Conan Island book, which is so good and so relevant. And you and I know a lot about what he went through. I didn't get to the level he did, and I didn't continue on after university, but I understand very much that it's so difficult, but you need tournaments when you're at that level because you need the money to come in, you need the points, you need the match practice, and you're going from Siberia to, wherever it is. So it's one thing for, the top guys and top women to say there's too much tennis, but they also have the choice of not doing it. They don't have to play the exos. They have to play some mandatory events. There's no doubt about it, but they also get the
Yeah.
nice lifestyle and the private jets and the nice restaurants and the holidays when they want them, like in Sabalenka's case. But you've got the other rung, which is the majority, isn't it, of the tennis players that aren't making that much money, that do need the jobs. And that's what the ATP and the WTA Tour provides. And I think there's more challenges, there's more 125Ks for the women, which has been absolutely brilliant, I think, and allowing a lot more players to play good tournaments, get some really good points, and most importantly, perhaps prize money.
And Candy, bringing you to Riyadh, you haven't been in Riyadh.
No.
I guess what's been your take on the finals? From afar, and what do you think? I guess the general perception is of the WTA finals in Riyadh.
I think it's gone really well. I know there's a lot of controversy about Riyadh, but there's the next gen in Jeddah. Rafa Nadal's a Saudi Arabia ambassador. I personally have no problem with it. I think for people in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East to see women play this level and put that much effort into it and be incredible athletes, I think it can only be good for young girls and young women looking at the likes of Aryna Sabalenka and Amanda Anisimova and Pegula and Coco Gauff. I mean, they are just fantastic players. And I think overall the level's been high. I think Elena Rybakina has shown that in 2026, probably she is going to be a major contender again. I don't know
Yeah.
how you feel about this, but since the whole thing with Stefanov, um, her boyfriend coach, it's kind of a blur line, but he was almost blackballed, wasn't he, by the WTA, and seems to have come back into the fray. I think she looks a lot more settled and a lot happier. We're starting to see the best of Elena Rybakina again. Sabalenka's the undisputed world number one. Iga, I think that's an interesting story. Of course, she didn't win a title until Wimbledon, the major she hadn't won. I was wondering if she would stay with Wim Pessette, and now she's been ousted at the WTA finale before the semis. Will she begin with Wim Pessette in 2026? That's a question I have. And there's still some fundamental problems, it seems, with Coco Gauff's serve and the biomechanics stuff that she's been doing. So that's a question mark. But I don't think women's tennis has ever been healthier, personally. I think we've got some great rivalries. Amanda Anisimova coming from, where was she, ranked outside the top 400 in early 2024 to now being a key player, a twice major runner-up, and someone who's just surging. So it's a very exciting time on the WTA Tour.
What did you think of what Coco said? We touched on it briefly before you joined us, Candy. Coco said it, and she said it in a very respectful manner. But just, ultimately WTA is in such a great place right now. And what we talked about before you came on, this year will be the 10th different winner in 10 years of the WTA finals on the women's side. None of the four semi-finalists have won it yet. Serena won it 3 years in a row. And then since, I believe, 2014, 2015, maybe 2015, I think there's been a different winner each year. Obviously, Grand Slams have been picked up by different players. It feels like there's a real pool of maybe 8 or 10 players that can win these events.
Yep.
Whereas on the men's side, we are getting a little bit bored. I certainly am. Like last week in Paris, I didn't have any interest. I knew Jannik Sinner was going to win Paris. I had no interest. Of course, he was going to win it. And if I'm honest, Turin the same. I just don't see how Jannik Sinner doesn't win it.
Yeah.
Unless Alcaraz it comes to the party indoors. But it's basically those two, right? How much validity is it what Coco said? And I guess comparing the two, the WTA seems like it's in a bit of a healthier state, maybe, with regards to having that kind of group that are bringing maybe more excitement to events in terms of who the varied winners of the events as well.
Well, I suppose, you look at Iga Swiatek and how dominant she has been for a while, and that is no longer the case. So with the men's, the ATP side, you would expect, a few players maybe to step up next year, and if Sinner or Alcaraz gets injured or loses a little bit of confidence, anything can change. I mean, Draper coming back he's got to be right in the
I
mix, I'd
just think the
imagine,
gap's too
next year.
big. Even a bit of confidence. I think the gap's too big, Candy. I think it's just a huge gap. I think
Yeah,
it's an
no, I don't
overnight.
disagree with you. I don't disagree with you at all, but they've sort of set the standard, haven't they? And now they're waiting for someone to come and meet them. And I suppose a little bit like Federer and Nadal, and then Djokovic stepped up and started winning a lot. But no one was really bored with that happening, were they? And maybe Sinner and Alcaraz, they are. To me, I still really enjoy it. But yeah, I think the WTA is in just such a great state because there's so many people that can win. We've started to get more and more, I think, variety in the games as well. Players aren't just hitting the ball massively like they were in the Serena Williams Sharapova time. I personally found that a little bit dull. I like the Ash Barty and the Paulinis and those kind of players sort of mixing in and making the game a bit different. And I think that's what makes Alcaraz so exciting, doesn't it? Arguably the most popular player right now, that he's just got so much variety to his game. But I really enjoy watching Sinner play. I just think he's mesmerizing with his balance and the way he's
He
able to
is.
come out of the corners and hit backhands up the line. So for me, as someone who loves tennis, I can't get enough of it. But you're right, on the men's side, it's a bit of a duopoly with Novak kind of being there or thereabouts.
And to bring those two pieces together, having been in Riyadh and a couple of years ago being in Turin, a few years ago being in London, the WTA finals, well, I've been to the last three, unfortunately does not compare as a spectacle to the ATP finals. It just doesn't. ATP finals in Turin, ATP finals in London, you feel like you are at a spectacular show
Yeah,
with the giants of the sport that people just can't get enough of them. Like in the city, they can't get enough of them. There's just people everywhere outside the hotels. You feel like you're traveling with the Beatles almost. It's got that feel to it. Riyadh, I've really enjoyed the last couple of years, but it's dead.
yeah.
The court's dead. The singles matches, maybe they you get a little bit more cheering, but it doesn't feel like we're celebrating these superstars, which they are. They're,
Yes,
they're not just like superstars in tennis terms, but these are like arguably the greatest female sports women in the world in any
completely agree.
sport, and from a fame standpoint, from an execution standpoint, a skill, of all of those things. And I'm not sure that it's happened certainly the last three that I've been to, but also I know Dallas before that I heard was a bit of a shambles. So I think, how do we elevate these
Mm.
amazing athletes on the women's side up to that? How do we get that real grasp of the magnitude of what they are in terms of sports stars, and put them on the stage that they deserve to be on?
Well, I think if the WTA finale is in Turin or London, it's a completely different spectacle because you just don't have the audience, do you, in the Middle East? I mean, we see it in Jeddah every year at the Next Gen, where João Fonseca is the current defending champion, beat Lerner Tien in the final. But we've had all kinds of sensational champions coming out of there, including Yannick Sinner. But there's just not the audience yet. And they're obviously, Saudi Arabia in particular, working on it. They have the Club World Cup finals every year. So teams like Man City are out there. And it just needs more of a sports audience, but it is awfully hot. And sports is just about sort of starting, which is why they're investing so heavily in that region. So it is tough, and it's really just the location, in my opinion, because like I said, if it was in one of those big sporting cities, and how well has Italy done? I mean, I think the free to air
Yeah.
tennis on Italian television, I just wish they had that everywhere in the world, particularly in the UK. I think we miss that so much that you have to subscribe to get your tennis.
Yeah.
And in Italy, I was in Bologna last year for the Davis Cup finals, and there were two channels, two dedicated channels for tennis.
Is that
I was
right?
watching Lucia Bronzetti play somebody, and then Elisabetta Cocciaretto play someone, and then Flavio Cobolli, and then Sonego. I mean, it was just bonkers. And then you're getting guys down the rung and women that are just coming up. So now the Italian fans, tennis fans, or anybody knows these people because they can turn on the television and go, oh, well, I know that person. I'm going to go and watch them play. So I think that's lacking around the world, and I hope that will change. But yeah, I think it's just the location, and I think the WTA is starting to do a really good job. They're investing a lot more in trying to promote their players, and you've seen all the beautiful pictures. I mean, Gabby and Erin look fabulous in their makeup and their dresses, and the WTA are putting a lot of emphasis, I think, in really starting to promote their players, which perhaps hasn't been the greatest for a while now. But I know even on the WTA website, the people inside there are really putting more effort into updating the profiles, and so we can find out more about the people and how they've got to this stage. And so I see the investment coming, and I think we're just going to be patient. But you're right. I mean, they are the best and biggest sportswomen in the world, and that is factual because Coco Gauff for a few years now has been the highest paid female athlete, hasn't she, by a country margin?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'd love to see it in a Turin, in a London. I
Yeah,
don't know the reasons why not. I don't know if they don't feel that they're going to draw that crowd or fill that stadium, but let's see. Now, I know I've got you not for too much longer, so I want to jump into today's matches. Obviously, we're about to start the semi-finals of the doubles, which we will get to. But the first singles matchup is Jess Pegula
mm,
against Rybakina. Jess is actually 3-1 on
yeah,
Rybakina on the tour. Um, Last year, I mean, I love Jess. She's just the most normal superstar
yeah,
and
quality.
multimillionaire the world's ever seen. She just I was fortunate. We had a few. She's good friends with Erin, and we had a few little conversations. And she's just so down
Yeah,
to earth. But she seems locked in. She seems happy this year. Last year in Riyadh, she didn't. She was off.
okay,
We saw that with a few of the players this year through illness. I think Paulini was ill. Mira Andreeva's been ill. Maddie Keys has been ill. As you could see people walking down to breakfast, the sniffles were starting.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Coco was speaking to us saying, like, stay away, stay away from me. I think everyone was trying to avoid it. But then Rybakina was also my pick at the start. I think Rybakina came into the right form at the right time and looked like she was coming in full of confidence. The conditions clearly suit her as well. A little
yeah.
bit of altitude, serving out of a tree. How do you see that one lining up today?
Yeah, I agree with you about Pagula. I think she gets some stick, her and Navarro, because they are wealthy outside tennis, but I think they are two of the most humble, polite, well-mannered, interesting women on tour. So I don't give any credibility to the fact that, because they're so wealthy, they've made it. I think that's total rubbish. I think they've had to in some ways work harder because there's not the motivation perhaps coming from outside sources. So brilliant for Pagula, but I do think Rybakina will win today. She's got a couple of titles in the last 18 months, hasn't she? Ningbo, most recent one, beating and Amanda Anisimova in straight sets, Iga in three, and then of course Alexandrova, who came in for Madison Keys 4-4. She's looking great. She, along with Sabalenka, hasn't lost yet. Um, and yeah, she's just such a big player. I think we've been waiting for this for a couple of years, Rybakina to get back into form. I think she'll just have a bit too much, and I agree with you. I think the court and the whole surroundings, the altitude just suit Elena's game better slightly than Jessie Pegula. But I mean, Pegula to beat Coco and Paulini and then lose to Sabalenka, she's had another great year. Semi-finals, US Open, Beijing, Wuhan. She's a maximizer, Pegula, isn't she? I think she gets the most out of her ability, but Rebecca's just got a bigger game.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree. I mean, if Rebecca drops a level, I think Pagula will be there to take it. I remember
Yep.
watching, I think she beat her in Cancun a couple of years ago, the finals. And I think when Pagula, she just got that feeling for me right now. She's locked in. It's going to take a good performance to beat her. Is my feeling today.
Mhm.
I think Rebecca probably has that in her, but if she drops 5-10%, because Pegula's one hell of a ball striker as well. I know she's
Yes.
a little, but she hits the ball beautifully. And yeah, I think it was someone I saw that she's the first player since Serena Williams over 30 American to win. I think 53 matches she's won this year. So
Very cool.
um, And she actually, an interesting little side note on Pegula. I also heard this week, and this hasn't come from me, so don't quote me. Maybe not the best thing to say on a live podcast, but I heard that she's actually locked in to play doubles with Kessler next year. I've heard
Great.
that she's missed doubles. That she
Good.
finds it a bit boring when she's at tournaments and she's not playing doubles. Obviously, she played with Coco for a couple of years. They got the world number one.
Yep.
So I've heard that she's signed up to actually play the doubles tour properly next year
Love
with
to hear that.
Kessler, which will be a great team because Kessler
Yep.
can seriously play doubles.
And what a great girl
moving into
Kessler is. Just quickly,
yeah,
coming out of
absolutely.
the state of Georgia, which I lived in for a long time, went
Yes.
to the University of Florida. Great story. Trained at the Stephen Diaz Academy, which I know quite well. So yeah, she's great.
And then the second semi-final, it's kind of funny actually. The two semi-finals, you would pick Rybakina and Sabalenka, but they both have losing records. You know, Sabalenka is actually 4-6 with Anisimova. Obviously, they played some big matches this year. Semi-finals of Wimbledon, where Anisimova just about got over the line. She scraped and found her way over the line on that one. US Open final they've played this year, and also French Open quarterfinals. So Sabalenka is 2-1 on the year, but Anisimova has won 6 out of 10 times on the tour.
This one is so hard to pick. It's a 50-50 for me. Sabalenka finished 3-0 in the group. I think Anisimova had a very slow start to Riyadh. She was the only one of the 8 making a debut, lost in her first match to Rybakina pretty handily, but since then she's beaten Madison Keys and Iga, both from a set down. We talked about her being outside the world's top 400 in early 2024 and now ensconced in the world's top 10 and just going to get better. Two US Open and Wimbledon finals. She got to one Beijing. I'm going to edge for Amanda Anisimova. I'm bullish on Anisimova, even though Sabalenka deserves to finish as the world number one. She's been the best player of the year once again. But I think Anisimova is going to sneak it.